So here's the view from where I'm having coffee in the cockpit here. I've just spent quite a time planning my onward passage to Huahine from here in Moorea, leaving here just before sunset. And then I should arrive middle of the day there. It's about 97 miles all in all. So that's my plan. So I've been busy with that. And I just put the pole up because it's so much easier to do it before I start off. And we're going down on port tack, so I've actually just put the pole out in readiness. It's so difficult to do it when I'm at sea, so I'm getting it out now. It looks as though it's going to be needed, and if it's not, that's no problem. I just have the genoa over to starboard side, but if I need it on over to port on almost dead downwind, which it does look as though it's going to be most of the time, it's ready now waiting, so that's good. So there we go, the pole's all ready. All the lines are laid nicely. Change the position of the genoa car as I always need to. And then we've got the after guy coming back. So all ready to go. Really happy, really happy about that. So much easier doing it in the calm of an anchorage than in the seas underway. Getting ready to leave now, about to hoist the mainsail and raise the anchor and get going to Huahine. So got a meal ready for tonight. It's an overnight passage, get there tomorrow afternoon sometime. And the wind is already 17 knots here in the anchorage, so it should be a good sail. As it turned out, that was actually a really good thing to have done because it was a pretty rough crossing. And so to have a good meal ready just to warm up slightly and eat was really, I really appreciated that. Okay, anchor's up. Came up without too much problem. I was a bit worried about getting close to a catamaran not too far ahead, but that worked out fine. So we're underway. Leaving the anchorage, looking a little bit threatening back there, but the sun has actually just come over the hillside here near to sunset. So now we're approaching the reef entrance where we have to be careful to stay close to the marked channel. A bit threatening over there, we could get some rain. Well, here's our route out through the reef pass, and it was good to see that we definitely had wind and tide together because the speed of 6.5 knots was definitely more than we were making under motor. So that was good. Passing by the first red buoy there, and then coming up to the next one, and then we're out. Well, that was the first red buoy, and then we looked for the next one, not too far in the distance. Very easy passage through the reef pass. Excellent. Get out a little bit further into the clear water, and then we'll turn around to get the main up, because at the moment the wind is astern, so we need to be head to wind to get the main up, of course. Lovely to see the sunset catching the hillside as we came outside the reef at the entrance to Avea Bay. I had already raised the main a little bit, as I normally do when I start out, and I had actually left 2 reefs well tied in, and it turned out that was just as well because we had winds up to 25, even 30 gusts at times. So 2 reefs did really well. Lights are beginning to come on shore, and the light on the northeast point of Moorea is flashing every now and then. Well, it's just gone 2 in the morning, and we just had the cargo ship Avea on its way to Moorea by the looks of things. Passed quite close, half a mile or just under, but that was fine. They kept their course, I kept mine, and we didn't even get on the radio to each other. There was also another boat which I recognised, Canoa, a yacht that I know from the Marquesas. I think I last saw them. They came down on their way from Huahine towards Moorea as well, but quite a distance off. And then there's another ship. So it's quite a busy little route this way, and having to keep an eye on things. But with AIS and people transmitting and me transmitting, we're all able to keep an eye on each other without a problem. So anyway, so everything's going fine. The wind has eased somewhat from earlier. It's now around 14 knots apparent, and since we're making around 4.5, 5 knots, that means that it's probably up to 18 knots, probably true, not quite 20. Whereas earlier it was definitely getting up 25 knots, and maybe even getting up to 30 occasionally. Quite a strong, gusty exit away from Moorea once we got out of the lee of the island. So yeah, it's nice to have things eased down because the swell is quite big and we've been thrown about quite a bit. So that's slowly getting better. So I look forward now to dawn. 2 in the morning? Dawn should be starting up. Light should be starting up around 5 o'clock. Sunrise is probably not until near around 6, so that's 4 hours away. Alright, so we'll go and get another short sleep. We don't see any more vessels to worry about on the way now. We're just under 30 miles off Huahine at the moment. 30 miles off the coast, that is. Okay, so we're off for a short nap. 5:40 in the morning, and first light is appearing. A little bit of red there where the sun's going to get up, and the stars are disappearing. Orion was high overhead, but now very few stars to be seen. Wing on wing, goose winged. Do you know it on the pole? Very rolly. Nearly 6 o'clock, 5 to 6 now. Sun getting definitely quite a bit brighter, low down below the horizon still, not yet risen. And ahead we can actually see the outline of Huahine, where we're headed to. We're headed to the west side, keeping well off to avoid the reef on the outside of it. The swell is still quite big, and it's almost, the wind is almost dead astern, which is why it's good to have the genoa roll down. But it's very rolly. We're really being rolled around a lot. Huahine now 12 miles off, around 6 o'clock. 20 minutes or so before sunrise. Quite clear to see. So very close to sunrise, and the swell, I'm just trying to show what the swell is like. Always very difficult to get a good picture of it, but it's pretty big still, and we're being rolled around quite a lot still. Hold the camera still just to show how much we're rolling around. And it's interesting that in fact it looks as though we're just going up and down. The video is not showing the heeling that happens as we heel over from one side to the other, as well as going up and down. The video doesn't really give the true picture. Well, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're just passing the southernmost point on Huahine. And interestingly, it's also in two parts, a bit like Tahiti, with just a bridge actually joining the two. It is actually two separate islands. So there is Huahine Nui, big Huahine, and Huahine Iti, little Huahine. So we're passing the southernmost point now, and actually when I stop eventually, I'm only 3 miles from where I will be tied hopefully to a buoy, to a mooring buoy. So we're 3 miles off that point, but I'm going to have to go up a good hour or so, up to the halfway up the west side to Avea village, come into the reef past there, and then come all the way back down inside the reef to get to where I'll end up. So it's quite a distance. Here are some of the yachts inside the reef. And if you look carefully, you can clearly see the reef, the waves crashing onto the reef on the outside. So here's the view through the cockpit. Looking ahead, there's the island. We're coming up the west side. And here's the Genoa doing a good job poled up, because we're almost dead downwind. Just on port tack, but only just. It's like a nice day. We've lost the grey cloud that we started off with in Moorea. So here's where the boat is, near the south of the island, and then we can see the bay, Avea Bay, right down in the south where we're going to end up. Right there actually is Avea Bay, where I shall be hopefully tied up to a mooring buoy. In a couple of hours maybe. I've got to go all the way up the west, halfway up, and then back down again. We're still in deep water, quite big swell coming in. Although we're coming down the west side of the island, we're not protected from the swell in any way. It's 9 o'clock now. I've got my coffee waiting, and we've got a better view, a different view of the island, room permitting. So it's Huahine Iti down at the bottom end, the smaller part of the island, and Huahine Nui, the big island up at the north. And the break is on the reef there. Well, I just removed the preventer and jibed the main. We've changed course slightly, so the wind, which we were already sailing a bit by the lee, we're now on starboard tack, so I needed to bring the main over. And then not too long before I have to take the sails, furl in the Genoa and drop the main, so I'll have to come up into wind through that before I head into the entrance through the reef towards Avea village. The wind and the seas are still well up, 15 knots or more, well, probably more actually, 15 knots of wind. And I might furl in the Genoa quite soon because it's still on the pole. Quite strong conditions still. Time to have my morning coffee before we change course slightly again and get that Genoa in and down the main. Very pleasant. Good sailing conditions actually, making quite a few white caps from the swell and the wind, 15 knots. In fact, the 15 knots is often apparent, so it's a bit more in fact. Well, we've got 20 knots of wind, 21 knots of wind on the beam. Pretty strong conditions. I'm going to have to take the furl in the Genoa, I think, and then I'll drop the main. We're not far from our entrance into the reef, so we have to have our sails doused and come in under motor. A view of the reef in the distance and the sea state. There's the reef in the distance, the waves crashing on the reef. We're still in deep water here, we're well away. That I can see Raitea in the distance. That's due west of here, and we will be going there after Huahine. So there's Raitea, rather mistily in the distance there. Just a few hours sail away, not too far. Raitea and Taha at the north end. Some of these waves are still pretty big. They're obviously wrapping around the island and coming down this side where we are. And there are the breakers on the reef. About to change course and head into Avea village, but I've got to deal with the sails before we get too close. Right, well that's the Genoa furled in. And now for the mainsail. Of course, just as I was about to get the main down, a squall comes through. Under motor, I've got the main down now. It's getting a little bit wet. Got a few lines to deal with. Fortunately, the squall didn't last too long, and we started heading into the pass in the reef towards Avea village. Again, here you can see some of the yachts inside the reef, safely moored up. But at least we have flat water now, which is nice. We need to turn down, we're going to go down that way, down to the south end of the island. Well, there was no way that I could think about videoing while I was coming down down inside the reef. The channel was quite convoluted, and I had to really be careful and concentrate. There's the nearby beach, and there's a dinghy dock there. Oh, there's a dinghy dock. Just there. buoy that I'm tied to. Both lines coming to the bow. People on a boat nearby were obviously having some very noisy fun, but luckily by the next morning they'd gone, so it's been nice and peaceful. But it's gone 4 o'clock and I just had a very, very good sleep, tied up to a buoy at 10 to 1. Made such a fast passage, I surprised the friends that were going to help me. But another couple came out very kindly that knew of me from Mexico, from La Cruz, and they helped me tie up, so that was great. Here we have the anchorage in Avea Bay at the south end of Huahine in French Polynesia. And now I have to get that pole down and tidy up the boat after my snooze. That was a good sleep. I needed that after overnight, not having had much sleep last night. Pole again that I've got to get down. All in all, a very pleasant place to be, and I look forward to being here for several days. Well, I can't complain with where I'm spending my birthday. This is just lovely. Well, some South African friends from a nearby boat that I'd met up with in the Tuamotus had agreed to come over the day after my birthday to pump up the dinghy and try and get it going. Unfortunately, the outboard motor gave a bit of a problem, which they didn't have time to deal with. Fortunately, Denton on the nearby boat Simplicity very kindly volunteered to have a look at the problem, and he had to clean out the carburetor. As you can see, it was totally gunged up. He cleaned it really, really well and got the motor eventually sounding really sweet.
How's that sound? Like, got the car back.
So now we're adjusting the idle, are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll give it a little bit more. Let's see what that does for us. We'll go out and take it for a rip.
Yeah, brilliant. Denton's done a fabulous job here.
Rip it up. Oh, almost.
How old is this gas in here?
From Mexico.
It's from Mexico?
From me. Well, it was lovely to have a working dinghy and outboard now. Did really well, so I went for a little trip to the dinghy dock and on shore and took a few photos of the view from shore, and also a little walk up the road. Huahine is a beautiful island, really, really lovely, not too busy, not very big, and you can see, as I say, right here, you can see in the distance there very clearly. Plenty of palm trees, they grow some vanilla, bananas of course, lots of bananas, coconuts of course, lots of those you can see here, and beautiful beach, lovely, lovely, fine white sand beach, very, very pleasant. So here we leave you with a view of the beach nearby, of the where the anchorage is in the bay there, Avea Bay, and the lovely, of course, when the sun shines on over that sea, over the white sand, you get that beautiful, beautiful, bright turquoise blue colour. And an interesting old tree, it had fallen over, but then decided it wasn't going to die, it wanted to keep going, so it turned a right angle and went upward. And a very nice, very pleasant sunset. So from Huahine, we're going to go over to Raiatea next.